So you're in an active job search. But how do you avoid those low quality employers? So stick around, because in this video, I'm gonna share with you some red flags you should be looking for in those job postings to ensure that you're not targeting a low quality employer. Hey everybody, it's Brian from A Life After Layoff, and today I want to share with you some warning signs to look at in the job postings when you're in an active job search, because we all want to avoid that low quality employer and target only the best possible opportunities. And as a corporate recruiter with over 20 years of experience interviewing and hiring thousands of people into some of the world's largest and most well-known companies, I do know a thing or two about low quality and high quality employers, and specifically what to look for in those job postings. So I'm going to give you some insight into some red flags that you should be paying attention to as you're going through your active job search. But before we get too far into it, if you're interested in more videos just like this one directly from a corporate recruiter, I would encourage you to hit that subscribe button. And alternatively, if you come across a small YouTuber that's really putting effort into their content, maybe consider giving them that sub as well, because they really would appreciate that support. All right, so without further ado, let's get into some of those red flags. First red flag to look for is if the job posting is generic or lacks information, because good hiring managers put together detailed job descriptions that will allow us to recruit the right kinds of people. And with a lack of data or a lack of clarity in the job description, to me, it's a signal that the company is not really that invested in the position. And chances are it's probably a role that has a lot of turnover. So look for those best-in-class companies in your local job market, and you will notice that they have very detailed job descriptions that give you a lot of information. The second red flag to look for is kind of related to the first one, and it's if they don't list a company name or the company name isn't very clear. For the life of me, I can't understand a valid business reason for a company to exclude the name of their company on the job posting. And why would they leave the name of the employer off the posting? Because it's probably not a real employer, or the company has a bad reputation and they don't want to advertise it. In some cases, the company might be so small that the hiring manager is not very sophisticated and can't put the job posting together properly. But either way, those are all red flags and probably not a company that's worth your time. It's also worth noting that job boards like Indeed are free to post on for employers. So really any employer can post whatever they want on there. So you really need to hone your sense of discernment for a good quality employer, and any company that doesn't put their name on their posting is probably not worth your time. The next red flag to look for is if the same position is posted in multiple cities. This one's almost always the sign of a low quality employer, because they feel the need to spam their job posting across multiple cities in hopes to get somebody to stick. I suppose it is possible they're doing a ton of hiring all over the United States, but that's probably pretty unlikely. What's probably more likely is they have a turnover issue and they can't keep people on board. Hence the need for a perpetual job posting that is spammed across a wide geographic region. There is a company that comes to mind, and I'm not going to name their name, but they're in the recruiting industry, and they have their posting all over the United States. And I know they only have 1 or 2 locations. And in my brief interactions with them, it was certainly a very low quality employer. It's also worth noting, if you see the same company posting their job repeatedly over and over again on seemingly a daily or a weekly basis, that's also another potential warning sign, because it means that they're not able to attract good quality employees. And I will put a little bit of an asterisk on that one if it's a very difficult to fill position in a very difficult location. But otherwise, good quality employers are not posting the same job over and over and over again. All right, so the next red flag is if they have unrealistic expectations. If you're reading the job description and they're listing out all these ridiculous requirements for the position, you're probably dealing with an overzealous hiring manager who doesn't have a good grasp on the current labor market. And you know the case where they're asking for 10 years of a certain technology when that technology has only been available for 5, or the infamous entry-level job that is requiring 2 to 4 years of experience. You're probably walking into a situation where the hiring manager is just not being realistic, and they're going to expect more than they can reasonably afford. And I like using the analogy of companies that like to shop on the BMW lot when they can only afford the Honda. No offense to my Honda friends out there. The next red flag to look for is the bait and switch posting. And you've probably seen this type of job posting where they'll advertise the job title or the wage range, and then when you actually click into the job posting, it's completely changed. It is absolutely the sign of a garbage employer, and one you should avoid. Because if they're getting cute with you in the application process, you can guarantee they're going to get cute with you during your time of employment there. So any good quality employer is not going to bait and switch and jerk you around throughout the interview process. The next red flag to look for is that the title doesn't match the level of responsibility. And so what this means is that if they're listing out a title, but the responsibility is clearly greater than what the title is suggesting, then it's a red flag to look for. Because at best, the company is unaware of the local market and what the market is commanding. And at very worst, they're going to try to lowball or take advantage of you. And as a personal anecdote, I actually once interviewed myself for a company that was looking for a manager in the job title. But when you started reading through the job description, they were actually looking for somebody with strategic vision, and that's really a director level role. And of course, they were only willing to pay for a manager level position, and that in and of itself is a red flag that you should be aware of. So make sure that the title matches the job description and is appropriate for the level of responsibility they're looking for. So the next two are closely related. The first being that if the compensation that's listed on the job description, if it's listed on the job description, is too low. Now, for obvious reasons, that's a red flag and a job that we should probably be avoiding, but it's important to note that we should know what our value is on the open market, and even if the company is small, they still need to compete for the right kind of talent. Because if they're not willing to pay what you're worth, then they should go off and find somebody else who's willing to work for that bottom wage. But if you're watching this channel, you know that we don't advocate that, and we are looking for the best possible opportunities for our career. On the flip side, the next one is that the salary listed is excessively high. And you might be thinking to yourself, how can excessively high compensation be a bad thing? And let me explain. They're probably needing to compensate for something that is very undesirable in their job, and you probably won't find out about it until you get further into the interviewing process. And inevitably, they're probably going to pull the rug out from underneath you at some point and surprise you with a doozy. But either way, we want to look for those salary ranges that are either too low or too high, because they're both red flags. So the next red flag to look for is if the company is advertising that it is contract or temp to perm. And let me explain why. When a company is doing contract or temp to perm, they are not making a commitment to you as the employee. Essentially, what they're looking for is to test drive you to see if you'll work out for them. Or they only need to use you for a certain period of time, and then they cut their ties with you. Now, I will say, if you're somebody that's only looking for a contract or C2C, then it's fine. But if you're somebody that's looking for a full-time opportunity, it is a red flag because the company is not committing to you. And I would be very nervous to take that position and stop my job search because of that lack of commitment. Because one wrong move and you may find yourself back on the unemployment line. So try to find companies that value their employees and make that commitment right out of the gate. And the final red flag that I want to cover in today's video is the cumbersome application process. If in the job posting, they list out a very specific and detailed and excessively cumbersome interview or application process, to me, that's a red flag, because good quality employers don't make you jump through unnecessary and endless hoops in order to get into the interviewing process and to ultimately get hired. But it's not to say that interview processes are easy, but they shouldn't be excessively burdensome. So if the company is asking you to take abnormal steps or do something that seems unusual, then you should definitely be very alert for the possibility that you're dealing with a low quality employer. All right, so there's some red flags that you can look for when you're assessing the opportunities that you're applying to. The purpose of this video is really to be educational for the job seeker in order to find the best possible opportunities and avoid those low quality employers. So hopefully you found some value in this video. But if you're somebody that's struggling with your job search and you just can't seem to get away from those low quality opportunities, then that's actually something that I specialize in. I've got a website called alifeafterlayoff.com. It's loaded with tips and tricks, all from an insider's perspective. And I also have some of my deepest and most intimate knowledge in the form of some training courses. And the first one is called Resume Rocketfuel. It's designed to teach you how to write a resume that's going to give you the best chance of getting noticed to get that first round interview. Once you get that first round interview, it's up to you to sell yourself throughout the rest of the interviewing process and ultimately land that offer. And that's where the ultimate job seeker bootcamp comes in. It takes you through each step of that interview process, breaks down tips and techniques on how to pass each step, and ultimately how to negotiate that best possible offer for yourself. So if you're somebody that's struggling, I would highly encourage you to check those out. Yes, and I'm also available for some limited one-on-one private coaching. If you're interested in that, you can reach me through my website. Appreciate you watching. Happy job hunting, and we will see you on the next one.